Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the CSL. Today we have Michigan State going up against Washington. I'm Joe. I'm joined here today by Fear Dragon, and we've got some exciting collegiate level StarCraft. How are you feeling after our little winter sabbatical?
I'm feeling terrible, Joe, because holy cow, such a long time without getting to watch some CSL, some collegiate Star League. Feels bad, man. But we are finally back and ready to go at it. And like you said, it's going to be Michigan versus Washington. What a way to kind of bring back the collegiate Star League and hop in on a pretty cool match, because we got some good up-and-comers on both sides of this. There's definitely some potential for either side to take it, but I think a lot of people are giving some good favoritism to Washington, who has had just such a stellar record so far in the CSL.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. They've got a lot of hot up-and-coming players. Our first match is going to be a little bit volatile because we've got a ZVZ. Now, it's going to be Lamb Sauce versus Tambi. Tambi, I think, is like kind of inarguably the strongest player on Michigan. But Lamb Sauce, like there's a few players at the Washington State that are kind of at Lamb Sauce's level of that just GM player that's going to be a really solid lineup member to have in the CSL.
Yeah, Lamb Sauce is a really cool story because he's one of those freshmen that came in this year and has actually shown that he's a pretty good player. He's actually really, really competent and possibly able to compete with someone like Tambi, like you were saying. So that's going to be an interesting thing to look out for. But we're playing not just a ZVZ to start things off with, we're playing on Battle on the Boardwalk. For those who are not familiar with this map can get a little bit crazy even in ZVZ, although I'd say it actually gets most crazy in some of the other matchups. Let's go ahead and talk about that after we introduce the players.
Spawning here in the top right-hand corner, playing for Michigan, it is our yellow Zerg player. Give it up for Tambi.
And his opponent up here on the top left-hand corner of the map, we have the purple Zerg player. It's Lamb Sauce, representing University of Washington.
So we were just talking about Lamb Sauce kind of made a name for himself in the CSL last season, doing really well, killing a lot of lesser players, and I think he had a couple of big snipes, maybe against UConn, taking out one of their maybe Printf or H-Jacks. I think he had a really good snipe against. I'm trying to remember exactly.
Yeah, he had a couple of really good finishes, including actually he beat OMG a Banana, one of Chicago's best players. So I definitely actually have some like pretty decent expectations right now for Lamb Sauce. But again, ZVZ on Battle on the Boardwalk is a little bit different than many other maps. The rush distance for these overlords, I say rush distance, but it's more just like the scouting distance for these overlords is actually pretty short. And you can also see that they are both going to be taking their natural expansions pretty quickly. They're going for a hatch gas pool, looks like on both sides. And neither player are going to be going for that gold base. It's on the bottom left and the bottom right-hand sides of the map. These are bases that are accessible directly from your main base through this kind of boardwalk that is on the far left and the far right-hand sides of the map. And it's also protected by destructible rocks on the far south side. So your opponent can knock them down, put some pressure on there. But for the most part, they're actually pretty easy to defend gold bases. ZVZ gets a little bit weird, though. There's all kinds of weird, awful things you have to deal with if you try and go for those bases. So we see the more normal bases being grabbed here for both players. It's just nice to have those queens easily able to go between the main and the natural expansion very easily.
Yeah, I mean, that's a super important thing when you're talking about trying to defend that ramp, being able to get the queens up and down. Having creep spread connection even is just so important when you're trying to be able to get any kind of units moving back and forth between those bases. Looks like these guys mirroring each other pretty much identically here, just standard defensive early macro openings. We haven't seen any big unit pumps just yet, but it looks like Tambi going to be throwing down that Baneling Nest a little earlier, maybe playing things safe, maybe going for some kind of aggression off the back of that Zergling speed, whereas Lamb Sauce throwing down a Roach Warren off just 1.5 bases here.
The Roach Horn is actually, I think, a very greedy play over here from Lamb Sauce. We'll see if it pays off. Oh, the Ling's going to be able to get into the main base of Lamb Sauce, and they're going to get a full scout on almost everything. They actually are not going in on the Roach Warren just yet. They are eventually going to swing around and spot that out. So that's a really important scout for Tambi, because, again, this is not like a lot of the other maps where you can have that sort of nice walled off area. If there's a huge flood of Lings or Banelings, you could be in a lot of trouble. But wow, actually the opposite reaction that I would kind of expect from Tambi He's going straight up to double spine crawler, playing hyper defensive right now, even after scouting a third base from his opponent.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird reaction. I almost wonder if maybe we're going to see him go into something a little bit weird, like a spire off the back of this. You don't typically want to just get 2 spines and sit on 2 bases when you know your opponent is taking a third base, when they have roaches. It's usually that kind of defense is to try to give yourself more options to do something else weird.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to wait and see. He's also still not grabbing a third base, so again, like, the spine crawlers are great defensively, and I almost really would like to see him go for a big Ling Baneling Roach Flood at this point, but I guess if he just wants to continue playing out a little bit safe, there are some kind of funky timings that he can go for. Maybe he thinks the third is a little bit of a fake out, and he thought, oh, you're going for such an early Roach War, and surely gonna just try and push me super duper early on, which, hey, spines are great at shutting down a lot of the Roach aggression, or at least helping out quite a bit, but at a certain point, it's a big investment. It's basically 300 minerals, and that's a hatchery, Joe. That is your third expansion right there. That's why he doesn't have a third. It's because he went for the double spines.
Yeah, and we now see already Lambsauce continuing to leapfrog ahead. The layer halfway done, and I don't know. I think Tambi might have shot himself in the foot a little bit here. He's not out of the game by any means. He's just forcing himself to play so far from behind. And I think he's decided, you know what, maybe some kind of run by, some kind of attack. Maybe I can catch my opponent when he's moving out to attack me, and that's how I'm going to try to equalize this situation.
Okay, well, Lambsauce is situated over on the north side. A couple of Banelings coming in from the south side over here for Tambi, ready to move in, and Overlord is going to spot them out for Lambsauce, so he should know about those Banelings. We'll see if he does anything to deal with them, or if no, he's just going to try and pounce on this army. Some of the Banelings for Tambi still morphing in, though. Not quite going to be able to catch those before they finish morphing, but here we go.
Yeah, Lambsauce getting a good defensive spread here, not wanting to take too much damage. Nice Baneling connections, cleans up a lot of that Zergling buffer. Tambi's force is going to come streaming in, getting on top of things now. The Banelings are looking for a big connection with the roaches, but they don't kill anything.
Yeah, I mean, they soften up a lot of these roaches, but like you said, they're not killing anything, Joe. And the Zerglings are the ones soaking up all the hits at the front. The weak enough roaches are sitting in the back, and they're gradually going to regenerate hit points. 2 spine crawlers trying to get offensive over here, trying to walk their way off of creep all the way to the enemy side of the map. And no, it's just not going to work. Now they're retreating, but there is no retreat for a spine crawler off of creep, Joe.
Yeah, I think what we saw there was maybe just a big misread of the situation. And Tambi planted down those spine crawlers and maybe felt committed. He didn't want to lose the time that he spent and the those minerals, and maybe I don't know. I'm having trouble understanding it just because he saw the third. It was like a textbook misread, but I don't know how you can misread it when you saw the third.
Yeah, I'm not sure what exactly he saw that sort of made him believe he had to play a little bit more defensive with the spine crawlers. He did see the Roach Warren, and yes, the spine crawlers I think may have been started right before he saw the third. But it's still something that I think the spine crawlers were still being built. He had an opportunity to cancel and everything. It may have just been a little bit of a overreaction to something. And we do have a nice little, a really nice Baneling run by, getting 17 drones from Lambsauce. That actually might be enough to pull him back in the game. He is now sitting up a solid 10 workers. And while, yes, Lambsauce is recuperating those losses with his own drone counts, he's also backing up with his big army, which is kind of the main advantage he has right now. So the longer this game goes on, the better of a situation Tambi's going to be able to get himself into to try and stabilize this game.
Yeah, he's got his own third coming up, does Tambi. And that's going to be a big deal here. He's looking for more run-by opportunities. He's able to at least see these lings coming so he can maybe reposition his army. Now his whole mantra right now for the next couple minutes is just going to be don't take damage. If I don't take damage, I get my economy going, I'm suddenly back in this game.
Yeah, it's certainly a possibility. Getting to Baneling for a Zergling, not a bad trade for Lambsauce. I want to note how important this match is right now for Tambi and, of course, his team. Because if he is sort of like the ace player in a lot of ways. If he loses his first match, that just does not inspire a ton of confidence for his team, because it's so important for the ace player to win their match. Because if it ever goes to the ace match, game 5, then your ace player has actually already lost one of their matches. Well, then you just don't feel great about it. Going into game 5, it's a big gamble and saying, hopefully things will change this time, but what if they don't?
Well, it looks like once again Lamb Sauce looking to try to maybe push in this crevice. Tambi doesn't want to allow him to get a beachhead established through here. He's got some queens to help with this fight, but it looks like the roach count's still in Lamb Sauce's favor, but he doesn't feel confident pushing through that choke.
Yeah, I think probably a somewhat wise decision. There aren't actually that many roaches over there for Tambi, but I can definitely understand not wanting to push into a sort of awkward engagement angle and potentially throwing away a big army lead, which is still fairly substantial. He was able to catch up in drones pretty quickly, and yeah, he's just going to go along around the south side, maybe even catch the fourth base as it's going up, and then pressure that third where Tambi may be the one that gets caught a bit out of position.
Oh man, as this army starts creeping across, I bet Tambi is kicking himself for moving those spine crawlers earlier in the game. He's going to need every bit of defense he can get as this army starts to put pressure on the third.
Yeah, it would certainly be helpful to still have the spine crawlers, especially since Lamb Sauce even has the +1 weapons, and that actually just might be a little bit too much. He is starting to storm on through. He's taken out some of the drones now that are being pulled off the line, falling a good amount of worker supply behind, and the army supply is still not evening up.
Yeah, I think this might be all she wrote for Tambi in this first game here. The G is called, and it looks like that is going to be it as Lamb Sauce presses onward to victory, giving Washington their first point here.
Indeed, and again, that's a big win for Washington because they were already a little bit favored coming into this, but now that they've taken out their opponent's ace player, you know, the GM level player, Tambi, now all they have to do is try to win, like, any of the remaining 2 matches, which of course, like, I mean, that sounds obvious, but it's about the fact that they are probably a little bit more comfortable if it does go to the ace match, but they also just have, I think, a more solid all-around lineup, so they are okay with just trying out any one of the 4 matches. I would say that, like, the more games played, the more comfortable Washington will be because they just have, I would say, an overall higher level of play across multitude of players.
Yeah, they certainly have a deeper bench.
Yes.
Which I think is just, it's so important. It's a cool thing that CSL gets you to develop, right? Because you want to get your players better. One really good player still only scores 1 point. Or I guess 2 if you get the revive and it does go to the ace match. But you have to survive to get there. Even being allowed to revive him is not a guarantee.
Yeah, exactly. Even if Tambi had won, if we ended up seeing Michigan just lose all of their other games, then we don't get to that revive. We don't get to that ace match, and Tambi would just be, you know, you'd only have gotten to play that 1 game and maybe taken 1 game. But now losing 1 game, they have to actually now win 2 of them just to get Tambi back in there in the ace match. And there is still a potential that maybe they can turn this around and even beat, again, like one other really, really strong player that exists for Washington, Zeal. Zeal coming in for that game 4 is also a really scary prospect. So unless they have something up their sleeve to handle that, it's a really, really difficult time that I think they're going to be facing off. But here we go. We hop into game number 2. It's going to be a Terran versus Terran because today is just the day of mirror matchups mostly. So it should be a fun one.
Well, here we go. Spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have our red Terran player. Give it up for JXP.
And his opponent spawning up in the top left-hand corner of the map, we have representing Michigan State, it is McSwag. And that first game, really just setting the pace of the series. Oftentimes, game 1 can set the pace of the series because, you know, you'll have the one team that takes a small little lead and you're like, okay, cool, you know, we have a little bit of momentum going in our favor. But this actually just sort of defines what every match is going to mean. It's the difference between, oh, Michigan is playing from behind, and now they have to not just do relatively well, they have to actually overcome hurdles that they maybe would have not really been expected to be able to overcome, versus, hey, they win that first game, it's par for the course, and now they have to end this quickly if they want to stop that revive or stop it from getting to Zeal or something. They have a lot more options if that happens, but those are no longer on the table. This is very much a huge amount of momentum going in Washington's favor.
Yeah, and I do think there's a bit of a mismatch going on between McSwag here and JXP. I think JXP is one of those higher master players. McSwag, kind of a solid diamond player. That's not to say upsets can't happen. They absolutely can, especially when you have a mirror matchup. I mean, TVT maybe not as volatile as ZVZ, but you can still make things happen. And it's going to be on him to reach into his kind of bag of tricks here and hopefully try to pull something out for his team. Because if you get behind 2-0, that becomes really tough. You have to win the 2v2, then you have to come back and beat Zeal, and then you have to beat the ace match, which is probably either going to be against Lamb Sauce again or against Zeal, an old accomplished WCS player that, even if he's not quite as active, is still, you know, a WCS caliber player in some ways is always going to be good at playing a high stakes map.
Yeah, it is really very much about the idea that as much as some people hate it, myself included, it is almost a frustrating experience to talk to some of the old retired people who will say, yeah, you know what, if I came back to StarCraft, if you gave me like a week, I would still probably be in Grandmaster. Like, for a lot of these top level players that have been in Challenger and played in the WCS circuit, it is very much like riding a bike for them. So I do expect Zeal to still be a very solid contender for any of the players on either one of these teams. But okay, here we go. The cool thing about a team-based match is that, in a sense, you just individually have to win a best of one versus your opponent most of the time. And I like that McSwag is going to be going for the proxy starport and going for the tech lab. We may end up seeing a Banshee. There's also potential for maybe like a really fast Liberator range or something weird like that.
Yeah, with this Reaper opening, JXP might start to get the idea that something funky is going on. Seeing that factory right up at the front, seeing the Cyclone and Marine production here, and not seeing a whole lot else. I wonder if that's going to be tripping any alarm bells for him. We do see him firing up a Viking here, maybe looking to get some map control and scouting this out. So I think it's going to be really important to see if he starts saving scans, if he's going to be worried about that Cloaked Banshee potentially coming in.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. Keeping an eye on that energy for the command center so we can see the Banshees if they do come in cloaked, and also seeing whether or not McSwag is going to go in with his first Banshee immediately, or if he's going to wait until he has maybe two and also has cloak, because the difference between those two will really mean quite a bit. Sometimes your opponent will say, you know what? The timing came. They didn't seem to move into the Banshee. I guess we're cool. But no, he's going to move straight in, and that means that JXP most likely going to be saving that energy now for the scans.
Yeah, this is kind of a tough time, especially knowing that your opponent does have that Viking out, but the Viking's super far out of position here.
Yeah.
And it's going to show up eventually, but I think if properly controlled, this Banshee might be able to outrun a single scan.
Maybe not anymore, especially since it's actually starting to get cornered over here, but he's just trying to drag it away, I think, for the second Banshee to maybe move it. And wait a second, where is the second Banshee? There is no second Banshee. Oh, did he get supply blocked or something? Or
he must have. It was queued. Because it was queued. But that's...
He must have gotten supply blocked.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate, because the difference between that Banshee coming in right now when you're 20 energy away from a scan versus that Banshee coming in 10 seconds when the scan is at full energy, it's just a tough situation here. McSwag in a lot of trouble, as JXP now knows where this production is coming from as well, and his Viking can just kind of camp out on top of it and take a couple pot shots for free.
Yeah, he actually has two scans also saved up, and while the Banshee does get out of there surprisingly quickly. Ooh, Cyclone's almost taking out that Viking. Ooh, getting so close to taking out that Viking. But, of course, the Cyclones of JXP also going to be helping out with that anti-air. Banshee goes down without getting any damage done, and remember, Swag had a much later command center, and he is surprisingly still up 4 workers because he did get some damage done, but a lot of investments into those Banshees in that starport. So he doesn't really have like the... Oh, I guess he does actually have some barrack stuff. You know, I keep wanting to say that I think McSwag should be a lot further behind than he is.
I think
he's not in as bad of a situation as I thought. I
think JXP committed really hard to that defense. And I think that pulled a lot of his resources. I mean, he cut workers. He's only just now starting to SCV up his command center. Even though he had a second one, it wasn't actually doing anything. And if you're not getting any extra income, it doesn't actually put you that far ahead. So that's kind of an interesting thing that's happening. It now looks like McSwag is going to be floating that starport back home. He's got another one fired up, so he can start getting his macro cycles going. He's got 4 racks to the 2 of his opponent. This is not a bad situation for McSwag, despite all of kind of the weirdness that was going on in the opening.
Yeah, the one thing that I like a lot more for JXP, and it really does come down to whether or not he's actually going to exploit this, is the fact that once his medevac pops out, he has stim, he has combat shields, pretty close to finishing, and he can go for a very strong push out when his opponent doesn't even have stim done. Like
McSwag has stim done and almost has combat shield. JXP.
Oh, sorry, I'm actually misreading this. Yeah, holy cow. It's actually McSwag that has both of those done, and JXP is the one lacking it. Oh my god, yeah, McSwag. He's impressing the hell out of me right now.
I kind of like his position.
Wow.
I think his 1-1 is ahead of his opponent's. Like, I almost feel like after all that weirdness, we have to be missing something, right? Like, JXP should... Maybe he just was so worried that it was going to be like a super committed all-in, and he made a lot of Marines, and that's a lot of SCVs he wasn't making, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so, but he's going to go for the push out, and like you said, it is in fact JXP who's missing combat shields, and that's going to hurt a lot in these Marine versus Marine engagements. We'll see how he's going to try and deal with that. It has to be with good positioning. His siege tanks are loaded up in the medevac. He has to be very careful about that. And oh man, his Marines are just going to die so much faster in these fights.
Yeah, so I think the big thing that McSwag needs to keep his head on a swivel about right now is just not getting Doom dropped. That's going to be JXP's only way to try to crack that nut. Although it's tough to Doom drop with 1 medevac.
Yeah, you don't really have a lot of breathing space with that. And the siege tanks alone, 3 siege tanks against Marines that don't have combat shields, there's only so much you can do. There's really only so much you can do by just running in if the siege tanks are even somewhat close by. But hey, I like JXP's situation over here. He gets siege up in a nice spot that's actually going to be able to take out one of his opponent's siege tanks just because of the vision range that he has with that scanning a little bit earlier. And now McSwag can actually mine from that low ground natural.
Oh, I love using the Banshee here to force these low ground tanks out of position.
He's out of scans right now.
Yeah, this is so good. Forcing those tanks to pick up. He does need to be a little bit careful, McSwag, that is, of running his units into the tank fire of his opponent. But this Banshee, as long as there's no scans, can basically just be a forward scouter that doesn't take any damage.
Yeah, there's going to be a scan in a few more seconds. I'd love if the Banshee was still just whittling away at things, but again, I kind of understand just being a little bit cautious about it. Command center, the orbital command getting awfully low. I would love if he just retreated that over to that further back base and just try and secure this location, but oh god, it's going to be taking a lot of damage here. He's going to have to repair that up.
McSwag just bled out so many Marines, though. He ran I think, the biggest clump of Marines he had into the tank shells of his opponents, and he's now sitting at just half the Marine count. And he does have combat shield, but that's still a tough situation to be in when you're trying to defend this kind of area when your opponent has tanks sieged up behind rocks.
Yeah, counterattack on the other side of the map for McSwag, but it gets shut down. He had a medevac and a handful of Marines, but a little bit of miscontrol. He has 2 Marines attacking the command center that's acting as a third. And in the meanwhile, the rest of the Marines get cleaned up. But McSwag trying to break this entrenched position, loses another siege tank in the process. The Banshee finally going to be able to reign supreme over here. And he does get the cleanup. He should get the cleanup on all of these units. But again, it was a lot of lost mine time. No third base for a very long time as well.
Yeah, and if we look at the resources lost tab, JXP did manage to be a lot more efficient in that fight. And now in this next fight, he's going to have all the upgrades that he would have wanted to have to start things off with. And that's going to make a big difference. I think we saw JXP looking a little bit more in control in those engagements. He was showing better handling of his units, better understanding of the positioning there. And he was just able to abuse that a bit. So it's going to be interesting to see if McSwag can make something happen now that he's kind of ceded a lot of those advantages he had going into the first fight.
Yeah, the way that I would describe the way that this game has gone is I really think that JXP has had really solid strategical play, and I feel like McSwag is just kind of weirdly enough, it's not what you would normally expect as the you were saying, you know, Diamond player versus Masters League player, but I feel like McSwag has had the better mechanical play and JXP has had the better strategic play. But okay, McSwag gonna show me up a little bit and get into a really nice spot, but he's got nothing back at home to defend. And
Yeah,
Let
he
me tell you
really wants to
something.
save that one tank, but it's going to go down completely for free. And I think a base race may have just been triggered.
Yeah, but McSwag's army is not nearly as well suited for a base race as his opponents. I mean, normally you want a lot more Marines in the base race. Having some Vikings is good, but at the end of the day, I really like JXP's army a lot better for this.
Yeah, it's just superior in just about every way here. The only thing that McSwag is going for him is if JXP can remember to get some buildings into the dead space, he can maybe buy time, and JXP doesn't have quite that amount of breathing room if he were to try to lift off just because of the Viking count of his opponent. But once these Vikings are landed, they are vulnerable to things on the ground, doing their best to clean up. The SCVs coming off the line. There should be a high enough Marine count to keep the Marines of JXP from defending the space, but even that trickle out is going to slowly bleed into this.
Yeah, just taking small little bits and pieces of damage. He really wants that trickle out to be attacking Marines as opposed to the Vikings, since the Marines will be healed up by his Medivacs. But you can see now that finally McSwag is getting forced out of his main base. He's floating the orbital command away. And again, I agree, like the big advantage he has right now are those Vikings being able to chase down these buildings, but he has got to completely shut down all potential mining from JXP. Marines trying to go in on top of the Vikings. Oh god, the missile turret and the Marines sniping off almost every single Viking. In fact, that was
there's one left. The skin.
Two.
Oh, two. Jeez, that skin kind of bleeds into the bleeds into the tile here. But anyways, JXP's army is actually not as large as I thought it would be. He must have bled some of that out maybe to the SCVs coming off the line here. And there is still a possibility that McSwag here can go back to production. And at the same time, with those two Vikings, he can chase around these buildings a little bit more efficiently than his opponent can.
Yeah, I mean, he can try to move into the corners with some of these buildings and just try and buy time. JXP that is. But he also has his orbital command center still alive. It's just the problem is he can't really do anything with it right now with the Vikings.
Ravi, there's a cloaked Banshee still.
Oh, that is going to be really
And the
helpful.
orbital command center is in the air. If he remembers to cloak, he is remembering to cloak. And he's got a decent amount of energy on this. There's no scans available as long as those Vikings stay on the orbital command center. This is really nice move. I think he might want to be moving in with his units to try to help this out before those tanks get in position.
Oh, but McSwag also loses his command center at the same time. So as the Banshee is getting a lot of damage. Oh my god, that siege tank shot from McSwag may have just actually really put him in a much better spot. He cleans up so many Marines and is going to buy time for the Banshee now to regenerate more hit points. Neither of these players have an orbital command. Neither of these players have any SCVs on the map. It is just down to the buildings now.
Yeah, and this is a really weird game. I think actually if McSwag recognizes this, he cannot lose.
But the problem is McSwag really has far fewer buildings right now. There is actually still a potential for JXP, who's going to have full vision of all of the buildings that McSwag has, to just go in and jump on that barracks, because...
No, but McSwag can force a draw if he moves into the dead space. He can't lose.
It depends. Can he make it over to any dead space before JXP just unloads and goes in on that barracks? Because if it starts burning down, then it's a matter of, will the barracks burn down before McSwag can kill all of the remaining buildings? And I don't actually think that he can. I think JXP would actually win that fight, Joe.
I think you're right. I think he needs to have that barracks lifted also, so siege tanks can't try to snipe it with these spotter barracks as acting as positioners. This is so tense. This may be the most tense game we've ever casted in the CSL.
It is definitely pretty tense, but I still give a good bit of favoritism right now to JXP. He's floating. He floated his barracks over to see the remainder of the army. The Banshee is going to go uncontested. In fact, again, like, I really just like the idea of JXP coming in, splitting up his units a little bit, and just coming in from as many... Oh, wait a second. He actually got the barracks down to burning.
No, it's not burning. It's orange. Oh, wait, it is. Oh.
It is. That's a kill move. That's it. I actually don't think that he can survive this anymore.
I think you're right.
Oh, he's GGing out. JXP. Holy cow.
Oh. That was a really well done game by both players. Congratulations to JXP.
Oh my god.
That was a wild game.
That was a wild game, and securing Washington 2 victories of the 3 that they need. a very, very stunning game as we get ready to hop into the 2v2. Washington, I mean, that may have been a close game, but it makes this series look a little bit one-sided. So that was a really, really big win again for Washington, because now it's just like all relaxation and comfort for Washington. It is all on Michigan to upset at this point.
Do not go anywhere, guys. We will be right back. I think Fear Dragon and I both need a quick breather after that one. You're watching the CSL, and we're going to be right back with the 2v2 match.
But she said, trust me, these are the stories we will tell. As I stood frozen, infinite, I almost fell. But I got a feeling and my heart starts beating, a sudden rush of feeling alive. This is freedom and I won't change, I won't phase out. I know.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the CSL. We are hopping into our 2v2 where Washington holds a 2-0 lead over their opponents. Fear Dragon, how are you feeling about this match coming up here?
This is a rough one for Michigan, and Washington has two players that I think are masters or close to grandmaster, and Michigan is sitting with two Platinum League players. So just the odds are really against Michigan. They're already sitting down 0-2, but this is where miracles happen in the 2v2, Joe. Let's jump in and introduce the players.
Spawning here in the top right-hand corner, playing for Michigan State University, it is the yellow Zerg Shadow Force. And his teammate, the orange Protoss player, Up Yoda.
And their opponents spawning on the bottom left-hand side of the map. We have the purple Zerg player. It's Lamb Sauce. And his teammates, the teal Terran player, Garage Door, both representing University of Washington.
University of Washington, of course, like we talked about, they were favored coming into this match. So far, they've borne that out in every game. But 2v2 is where miracles can happen. The thing with 2v2 is things that we might call a dumb cheese, like something that would start with a pylon down here, can be a lot more powerful than they would be in 1v1, just because you can have so much stuff, and it's a lot easier to have a lot of stuff offensively than it is defensively, just because your bases are spread out and you have two places to defend, whereas if you're attacking, you can just bring two armies to the forefront and try to attack into that. And these guys are going for broke, Fear Dragon.
Oh man, Garage Door's coming in with the SCV to scout. He's gonna see the 13-12 coming out from Shadow Force, which is actually, wait a second, this isn't even a 13-12. He has two gas geysers. What on earth is this? He's got to be throwing up a.
The Roachborn, it's that build where you get 3 Ravagers. I don't think you're supposed to actually build 2 Lings with it.
This is a ZVT build, I guess. So, yeah, you were saying, like, you get up the Ravagers, you try and put the pressure on. It's going to be accompanied by a 4-gate. I really thought, just because of what the time the 4-gate would normally hit at, that this is just going to be a 13-12 with a lot of Lings and some Zealots flooding in. But, hey, you know what? This actually could really get some good damage done.
Well, yeah, because the Ravagers work like command and conquer artillery, right? And then as long as you get the wall down, Zealots are good. Zealots are good at everything except the wall.
The problem is getting the wall down, and I think that they were really hoping that the south spawn was going to be the Zerg player and the north spawn was going to be the Terran player, because now the Zealots have to walk a much further distance if they want to go after the Zerg. The Zerg is the one that I think is a lot easier to go after, and then the Ravagers. When the Ravagers finally come, then you can go after the Terran player after you've already totally dismantled the Zerg player.
Yeah, you're not wrong, but I mean they're getting the units out. The Ravagers are on their way down. I think you need 3 Ravagers to kill a bunker with average micro, more or less, like with the SCVs repairing and everything.
Yeah, I think if they're being very on point, you want 5 Ravagers, but we could still see 3 Ravagers be enough, especially if the repair is not coming out super quick and you have some extra DPS from, say, some good old melee units like a Zealot. But Ravager's actually leading the charge. That's not where they want to be. They want the Zealots leading the charge. The Ravager, first one is going to end up falling. Only 1 corrosive bile used in the bunker is just going to get repaired back up. So far, not a great start for University or Michigan.
Yeah, they're going to have another move here. They can try to make something happen. They don't have high ground vision, which is part of the problem. You really want to be using those Zealots to get the high ground vision, or ideally even an Overlord that's positioned where the bunker can't hit it. But they don't have that. I'd love to see them making better use of this big meat shield that the Zealots can be, and trying to maybe sack some of their shields in exchange. And I think they're maybe going to try to commit into the Zerg, which it's going to be tougher given the rush distance, but it probably makes more sense than trying to break that ramp.
100%. But I mean, now the Zerg has actually had a lot of time to get up their own roaches. Lamb Sauce has a few roaches coming out. He's got a lot of Zerglings to tank the damage, and also the Spinecrawler buying some time, eating up those corrosive biles. It does end up falling, and hey, the Zealots are holding the line versus these Lings, but now comes in the flank. Garage Door killing off all of the Ravagers and roaches from behind, and now the Zealots are so slow they cannot deal with the micro potential for these Marines and the Cyclone.
You know, I can't blame the University of Michigan team for doing what they did here. I think it was a smart gamble, right? If it was the Zerg on the southern spawn, there's a pretty good chance those Zealots just do a lot of damage, and then the Ravagers come in and there's not reinforcements to help defend, because those Lings are really important, helping defend the whole ground, poking those Ravagers and those Zealots. I think their attack is just about out of gas. There's not a lot of ways they can even really defend these gateways, and that's going to be all the production and infrastructure. I'm just not sure if there's any moves left from here.
There's not really a follow-up. This is an all-in in the most all-in sense possible. You build all of your production on the other side of the map. You committed your entire economy to getting up those roaches and Ravagers in mass and didn't drone up at all. And yeah, Shadow Force is trying to take a natural right now, and Up Yoda does have a cybernetics core, but he doesn't have any gateways, so there's no units being produced. He's building a Twilight Council, which I can only assume is for trying to get up a Dark Shrine in some sort of desperation play, but even with that, Garager actually has 2 orbital commands and is now mining out of his natural. He's going to have enough energy, I assume, for scans pretty shortly as well.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to these guys for trying. There's an attack coming across the map right now. Oh, it's actually a Liberator, which is going to be tough to deal with. You really need to have your corrosive biles be on point, and we already saw Shadow Force struggling a little bit with making that happen against the bunker here. That first Liberator is going to siege up. There is no second base for these probes to bounce to, and that is just pure lost mining time until they can clean up that Liberator.
This is definitely a rough one. No even chance of the Dark Shrine being thrown up right now, as the rest of the Roaches and the Ravagers come flooding on in. Are going to just depower the pylons, and it's never a great situation when you're facing supply blocks and you don't even have an army.
Yeah, you are absolutely right about that. They are making their push in. There's 3 Stalkers on their way out here. I don't think they're going to live to see the light of day. It looks like they do get out. Maybe going to fight with the probes. Go for one last hurrah here. It's the final map. Why not try to make something happen? And it looks like they may get the cleanup by sacrificing the entire probe counter and all these Ravagers, but the reinforcing Lings are going to be enough to clean up everything behind this. And yeah, it just wasn't enough. This base going to fall, and it looks like the GG's going to be called.
Yeah. Tapping on out, Lamb Sauce and Garage Door gonna be winning and securing the victory for University of Washington. A very, very solid 3-0, even though we did actually have some pretty close games there in game 1 and 2.
Yeah, really good first 2 games. That second game may be my new favorite CSL game here. I do want to say, of course, a huge thank you to you for casting with me. A big thanks to Cheesehead for helping to admin and run the tournaments. He's a great guy. And then I just want to say a quick thank you to our sponsor, Twitch. They help to make the CSL happen. Guys, you're watching it on Twitch. Make an account if you don't have one already. Stop being a lurker. Tell them CSL sent you. And we will be back Thursday, I think, with some Brood Wars. So be sure to catch that. The CSL is back. Tell your friends. Tune in. We'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday.
Between